Hello, welcome back to East Coast Bucks. This is the hunt breakdown of episode 1, the 911 buck. Brought my old trusty Matthews out with me that I picked up used a couple years ago, just to show everybody what I'm currently hunting with. And I've had several new bows over the years. I've pretty much shot just about all of them. I've shot PSE, I've shot Hoyt, I've shot them all really. Browning years ago, Bear. Used to shoot at Jennings for many, many years. And you'll notice a common theme with a lot of those older bows. I always like the longer axle-to-axle bows because I shoot fingers. Now I prefer to shoot with a finger tab, but in later winter I do use a glove, just a full regular, mitt glove that I shoot with. And I can even shoot bare fingers if I have to. Not saying that all of this is not advice or telling anybody how to do anything. I've just been asked a lot of questions about it, and this is the way I do it. I'm certain there's probably many better ways than the way I do it, but it's what I'm comfortable with. And with the modern bows, a lot of them, obviously you can't shoot fingers with these real short bows, which hint out to all you bow companies. Why don't you start making bows like this again for us guys that like to shoot fingers? And I think you'll see a resurgence in finger shooting if you do that. These older bows, to me, shoot so smooth. While they may be a few feet per second slower, or a lot of feet per second slower, some of the benefit you gain out of it from just pure enjoyment of shooting them, for one thing. I just love to shoot fingers. It's what I'm comfortable shooting. And, a lot of guys will tell you, shore releases, especially on the modern bows, obviously, are probably more accurate, or definitely more accurate, but you can be pretty darn accurate with fingers if you're an experienced finger shooter. So don't ever count that out. We did it that way for many, many years, and there's many a good archers that still hunt with fingers. And a lot of us old hardheads, we'd love to see a company come out with some of these older style bows. This bow here, I couldn't even venture a guess on how old it is, but it's in excellent shape. I got this bow for 200 bucks. This bow in 3 years. I bought it from a pro shop about 3 years ago. I think I've killed in the neighborhood of 8 Pope and Young bucks with it. Let's see, 3 years. I've killed 4 that first year, and then 4 in 2019, and then 6 last year in 2020. So do the math on it. It's worked pretty well for me. Like I say, not trying to influence anybody on what they want to hunt with, to each his own. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just giving this information because I've been asked a lot of questions about it. So I wanted to give a breakdown of what I currently use. And just for people that are interested, it absolutely means nothing. But I've gotten a few questions over it. People ask about the Whisker Biscuit. I get giggled at about that. And personally, I love the Whisker Biscuit. I've never had an issue with it. It's so daggone sturdy. Some of these little flimsy flip-away rests you see now, won't name any names, I absolutely laugh at the way I hunt. And the reason I do laugh at them is because they're so flimsy. I had a buddy that broke 3 in 1 year. I'm never going to hunt with anything that is that fragile. I'm into sturdy equipment. I've got tape around my handle because that started getting loose on me. That fixed that right up. But I'm all about efficiency. I'm not an idiot. I do keep up on the current trends of everything. But to me, my way of looking at it is if it's something that works good and I'm comfortable with, which I'm all about dependability. I want to pick that bow up. I don't care if I dropped it out of my tree stand, which I've dropped this bow out of my stand twice and still killed nice bucks with it afterwards. That's what I'm getting at. I want something dependable. I don't want to do this. Oh, my bow's out of tune. Oh, I got to go shoot it. I got to take it to the pro shop, retune it. I got to get a new rest put on there. My bow don't go in the shop all hunting season, and I hunt 5 months out of the year every year. For 40 years I've been hunting that way. So that's what I like to do, and that's just the way I do it. Like I say, I'm not saying the way I do it is the best, because I know it's not, but it works for me. And there was some interest in on what I shoot and why I shoot it, and that's a little bit of the reason behind it. So let me get into more detail of how I actually do it. Now you might notice this old style sight here. I would probably go to a single pin sight if I was buying a new bow now. I only use this one pin on these sights. These other pins I don't even use, even though they are in the same configuration as far as alignment. I keep them on there because in years past, several times actually, I've busted this top sight off. I'm hard on my equipment. When I walk to a stand, I'm pulling it up through vines on a string, whatever. Your string, vines will get wrapped around these pins, and I don't care what kind of pins they are. I've broke them all. They'll break these pins off. I usually break one a year. So what happens if I break one of these off? I've got a mark on here. Now this is in direct alignment with that top pin, and I only use that one. That's why there's so much of a gap in between it. I'll just move that pin, take that pin off right out of the tree stand, slide that next one up, and I'm good to go. That one pin covers me from 0 yards out to 35 yards. Now if I go out above 35 yards, I might just hold that pin a little high on the deer. Always has worked great for me. I hardly ever shoot more than 35 or 40 yards max. That's just me. I know guys out here, you know, that shoot 60, 65 yards, especially out west, it's no problem. But most of the areas we hunt here in the east, unless you're on a bean field or a cut corn field, you're not shooting more than 30, 35 yards most of the time anyways out of a bow setup. Okay, so enough about that, you know, into the actual bow itself. Go over a few things of how I do it, and this is for this first, you know, one of these hunt breakdowns that I'm doing. I won't do this every time, guys, so I don't want to bore you, but I've had, you know, quite a few questions about it. So way I like to, one thing I do, and I've always used this kind of setup, I mean for as long as I can remember, is a slide off arrow quiver. I like to slide that off. You know, I'll take that off. That's the first thing I do when I get in the stand. I'll pull out my arrow. Just started shooting a Luminox when I got into filming heavy here the past couple of years. I've always filmed, but I really got into, you know, trying to perfect it a little bit better, especially self-filming. So I went to that lighted nock, and I'm really starting to like it. Don't know why I didn't do it earlier, but it really shows up, you know, on the video a lot better. And so, you know, I'll put my arrow in there. I'll set that quiver to a side. Now, I always pull out a spare quiver, a spare arrow out of the quiver and set it up on a tree limb. I'm going to tell you the 2 or 3 times I neglected to do that because I didn't have a limb to rest it on, needed it every one of those times. You know that's the law of averages. That's going to happen. So that's one little tip. And one other point I want to point out on the bow hunting part of it. We've got a jet flying over, so let's take a quick break and I'll get right back to that here in just a second. Okay, back a little more about the equipment part of it. Basically what I'm trying to say is use whatever you're comfortable with. You obviously don't want to be shooting a junk bow, whether it's a recurve, I don't care what it is, you know, a slingshot. You wouldn't want to, if you're hunting squirrels with a slingshot, you don't want a junk slingshot. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're shooting a crossbow or vertical bow, it doesn't matter. Personally, I don't know anything at all about crossbows. It's not my cup of tea. Not against anybody that does crossbow hunting. That's not what I'm saying about it at all. I'm just saying personally, I've never used them and I don't know about them, so I'm not going to speak on them. That's a different subject. It's entirely different in my view. Nothing bad about it. I'm not saying it in that respect. I'm just saying that to me, I like vertical bows, and that's what my show's about. You will never see a crossbow on there, just because I like vertical bows. That's all it means. So let's get into, if you are vertical bow hunting, some of the do's and don'ts. And bear with me, guys. Like I say, this is going to be the only time you'll probably hear me talk about this subject. I want to get this out there now so when people are watching these shows, get a lot of questions on this kind of stuff, you'll kind of know where my stance is on it. As far as vertical bows go, no matter what you're shooting, it don't matter what kind of bow you're shooting. Release, not release, whatever, recurve, longbow. Here's one of the worst things you can do as a hunter shooting a bow in a tree stand or wherever you're at. If you have to do this with any bow, I don't care what kind of bow it is, release, no release, and you're doing one of these numbers, and you see it on nationally televised shows. You'll see it, not on all of them, but I've seen it before several times. We all have. That's not what you want. You need to back the poundage off if that's where you're going at. You know, and some of these guys, a lot of guys have an ego thing about bow poundage. And with the older bows, we used to have to shoot some pretty heavy poundage. I shot a 90-pound PSE for years, and that thing would kill you, trust me. And that was back when I was 25, 30 years old. I shoot a 70-pound older Mathews now, I've been shooting bows for a long time. Here's the bow draw you want to be able to perform in any hunting situation. And if you can't draw without hoisting that bow, then you need to come down a little bit. And anybody will tell you that. It's not just me, it's just common sense. When you're leaning over, and this is an odd position out of a tree stand sometimes, you want to be able to look at that deer, and he could be looking you right in the eye. I've done it so many times. You'll even see it on a couple of these videos. And you're eyeball to eyeball with that buck. You want that movement to be no more than that right there. That's just a straight draw back. And I mean, he almost can't even notice you doing that. He sees it. But if you do this deal right here, you watch how fast that buck gets out of there. That's just a little tip, and anybody will tell you that. That vertical bow hunts, that's kind of a no-brainer. But don't, I've heard guys kind of try to rationalize this here. This right here is not the way to do it. That's all I'm saying on that subject. So let's move on to the actual hunt. I'm going to take a little pause here and reset, and then I'll jump right into the hunt breakdown, and we'll go from there. But let me get into why I think I was able to pull that off. So I had figured out from the year before where these bucks were coming from and the way they like to come in to that hillside. That set is on a very steep hill. I don't know if you can see behind me, but it's similar. That's why I set up right here. Similar to this here. It was on a hillside, but I actually had a couple big cedars back behind me, breaking up my silhouette. And that is critical. Now, it's easier to find early season. It's really hard to find late season. But you've got to have that back cover, guys, especially if you're trying to film. Because when he looks up, and he silhouettes you against that tree, or you've got 10 does in there, especially if you're hunting over corn early season. Now, this is Maryland, mind you. And he looks up, or them does look up. It's so easy for them to pick you off. So that being said, he came in there. I had it set up to where they were coming from my northwest side, which in the east we predominantly have a westerly wind. Now I prefer it to be northwest. That's how I set up most of my sets. That gully was northwest of me. I'm, on top of this ridge with the road at my back and that old abandoned house right behind me that actually has an old chain link fence on it. So they can get in that yard if they want to loop around me, but they prefer not to. And as long as you don't spook them, that's why the first hunt of the year on most of your spots are always going to be the best hunt. Or I should say the first time that buck tries to make an appearance. That's always going to be your number one opportunity to take them. That's why you want to try not to goof that up if possible. So what you want to happen is you want him to make just a short, they're always going to usually hook when they come into that, if they're hunting over corn. He's going to make a little hook to where he thinks he can get downwind of you a little bit, or at least downwind of where the corn's at. He knows where that camera's at. And, it don't matter if you haven't been in there in a week or 2 weeks to check the camera. He knows where it's at. He knows how you come in there. He smelled your trail. He knows for a fact which way you come in there. That's why he comes in the way he comes in, so that he can look up that trail that you come in on. And that's very important, that whatever way you need to come into these sets on, it has to be a way that he's not going to cross that before he gets to you when you're actually hunting it. So you have to kind of take this into account when you set up these spots. Now remember, when you're putting out corn or whatever you're putting out, doesn't matter. This holds true for almost any hunt, scrape hunting or whatever. You do not ever want them deer, especially these bucks, to have to cross your trail on the way you came in to get to you. Otherwise, unless it's in the middle of the rut and he's just so rut crazed he crosses it anyways, 99.9% of the time, you'll never see that deer, and you won't know why. Well, you didn't see him because he had to cross your trail to get to you. That's my number one thing that I will not do, and I've learned that lesson the hard way so many times. The other thing that I'll point out, I will not hunt any of these sets, especially when I know I got them coming in on a regular basis. If that wind even has the slight possibility of being wrong, I won't hunt it. I'll hunt a different set that I have set up for that wind. If it's a swirling wind, if anything at all where I think that wind's not going to be on a good little steady wind in my face, on these primo sets that I know is set up for that buck to show up that particular evening, if it's not right, I'm not hunting it. Because once you screw it up, you've done screwed it up. I'm talking about on mature bucks now. Every once in a while you'll get lucky and be able to trick one, and he's just, I don't know, has a lack of judgment one day. Every once in a while, you'll see guys that get more than one crack at them, but most of the time you're going to get one crack at them per season, and that's why you don't want to screw it up. So keep those couple things in mind. Don't hunt your primo sets if you think the wind's wrong, unless you're in the rut, because in the rut sometimes it don't matter. Not only that, but a lot of times in the rut, he could come from literally any direction. Usually only in the early season can you really predict exactly which way he's going to come from. So that's a couple tips for that early season episode, and there's going to be so many different types of hunts coming up throughout this season. The very next one's going to be a Virginia rut hunt, and that's going to be a completely different setup. So we'll go into that. That's what I kind of think this after the hunt breakdown is going to be beneficial for all of us to kind of see the different ways to go about your different sets. So good luck to everybody. Virginia and Maryland are in now, and I wish everybody luck, and I'll see you on the next one.